Dangerous Podcast number 3. Leave your troubles behind. Leave your troubles behind. Yeah, leave your troubles behind. Get yourself a better life. Better life. Alright, so consider. Here's the next part. Gutsy storytelling. Now, there's a bunch of information about the supernatural visitor, Jesus is God, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to set that aside. That's not super hot right now. What's hot right now is pleasure, personal circumstances, personal disasters. I like strawberries. I like singing harmonies. I like traveling. I like traveling in Maine. I like sailing out to little islands. Spending time in the woods and in little cabins. I like being way, way up in big buildings and big cities. I like hiking mountains and hiking long distance. I like pedaling long distance. I like to go to foreign countries. And my body was designed for feel good. I am 64 years old. I discovered the feel good when I was about 5, 6 years old. Did your parents ever tell you precisely when they discovered the feel good of arousal? Do you care? Is that stupid? Is that weird? No, it's not. It's part of life. It's actually a really big part of life, okay? It's a really big part of life. Discovering arousal and how you've handled it. Some people discover arousal through kind of an invasive visit from another person. Now, here's the wild thing. 2 things, male and female. Fascinating stuff. The women have a flow. That flow is surrounded by a measure of discomfort and pain. Man has a flow. Male human being has a flow. That flow is surrounded by a measure of pleasure and stimulation. Now, there are supernatural beings around us, invisible spirit beings. Now, you might not believe that, you might not want to focus on that, but the most important thing in my life is I discovered that the predictions about Jesus of Nazareth show that the Dead Sea Scrolls prove that the Hebrew Scriptures have never been tampered with. There's 200 to 300 predictions about Yeshua that all came true in one person. The Koine Greek New Testament is the most duplicated book before the printing press in the entire human library, in all historic library. There's thousands and thousands of versions or discovered copies of the Koine Greek New Testament. So, with all that stuff aside, there's a declaration. There is an invisible, helpful spirit. There's a supernatural visitor. And then there's a peculiar set of writings, a peculiar book. And when the supernatural visitor is attacked by the bad spirit realm, that supernatural visitor refers to the written book, the writings. It is written. It is written. That's what Yeshua said to Ha-Satan, the invisible dark angel. It is written this and it is written that. So Yeshua, who is actually God, is referring back to ones who had lived before when there was a little less evil, referring to the writings of the prophets. Fascinating stuff. So if you go all the way back to Leviticus 15, you discover an awesome, amazing thing. Whenever the women have a flow of their flow, they are to be treated extra nice and extra special for 7 days. Unclean or untouchable. The word is really untouchable. Untouchable does not mean evil. It means heads up. That person's sick. Heads up. There's something special going on. It's just a heads up thing. And if a person is untouchable and there's an enormous emergency, they're not going to worry about that. That's like a low secondary, lesser part of the whole evaluation of values in life. Yeshua says, you guys are all worried about your volumes of mint, dill, and cumin, but you're not being kind. And you're not caring about injustices. And you're not being merciful to a person who has had bad influences and they did a bad thing. So you're fussing about these little details and you're not paying attention to things that are really, really important. So the untouchable state of a male or female or a person who's got a sickness, that's not super high priority in the whole flow of the family. But when the woman has her cycle in 7 days, the whole family takes extra care of her and leaves her some special space. And when the man releases his seed, which is surrounded by pleasure, he announces to the family, hey, I'm untouchable until the next sundown. The woman's untouchable for 7 days. The man is untouchable for just kind of like a day or an overnight. And it's interesting because it gives the whole family a reality. Hey, we are all one organism. And when we come together, our blood flows together and we make new children, new babies, new persons. So when we flow, we just pay attention to the flow, and that's our family responsibility. And it actually cuts back on emotional problems, especially hidden pleasure emotional problems. I was born to two extremely promiscuous people. When I was 25 years old, my mom broke down and she told me I was with 120 different guys before I got pregnant with you at 22 years old. And I don't know who your father is. The man who is raising you is not your flesh and blood daddy, and I don't even know the names of the men. I was with three different men in a relatively short period of time. I don't know who your father is. She told me that when I was 25. I was adopted in the womb. My mommy was pregnant. She was trying to commit suicide. This really nice guy came along, and he said, let's start a family. And he raised me as his own son. And they even formed a marriage and a family around me, and they had another child. They had my sister. So I was literally the reason why my sister was born, because they formed a family around me. So, if there were... Oh, and then my real father, who I met when I was 40 years old through a bunch of miracles, he was married with 4 children and a pregnant wife at the same time he got my mommy pregnant. I met my sister that was born 3 months before me, and we sing so similarly that it's just marvelous and wonderful. Joyce Lee Bowden. I met 10 half-brothers and sisters. We sang songs for 2 days. We got together and did a bunch of cool music. It was pretty marvelous. But now, both of my parents, my father and my mother, were under severe, cheerful, friendly promiscuity spirits. One of the biggest problems with the pleasure of intimacy is it's very friendly in a nice context. It's extremely friendly and fun and playful and satisfying. But also it creates emotional soul ties and a whole bunch of other wild stuff. Well, I was not trained in anything regarding sex and spirits when I was a child or for all of these years. God crashed in on me, and at about 40 years old, I began to get a picture of how completely blind and unaware I was of eternity and pleasure and intimacy and even the values of this world, which I was brainwashed by. I was brainwashed by the values of the world, and I was also abused by a very, very bad, a very weak Christianity. So my testimony is a bunch of sex stupidity and then a fascination with the fact that Jesus taught that there's supposed to be a single people's power team, a single people's power team, a single people's power service, a single people's power ministry called the Ministry of Widows and Virgins that are the favorite aunties and uncles in the families, going around and teaching the kids songs and doing exciting things and sleeping on the floor and waking up and getting the breakfast going for everybody and making sure that the married couples are going off and making out and being close together and taking care of the kids and doing all kinds of great stuff. Literally like a pack of cool angels. Really wonderful.